So Arlo, welcome back. This is our second video on DAOs. And last video, we talked a little bit about some initial questions we have for DAO owners or DAO creators or DAO executive teams and what exactly they should think about in terms of honing down their mission, their vision, and who's involved in making those decisions. Now, this question we're going to talk about is, do we start with a DAO or do we start with a legal entity? And can we flow back and forth between those structures? I think it's very common. A lot of people in DAOs don't even think about legal entities. They don't care about the legal entities. But you and I know as lawyers that the legal entities are coming for you whether you want it or not, right? There is the default is you're a partnership, at least under U.S. law, and you don't want to be a partnership. And so what do you think is a better way to start? If you had a group of friends coming to you and saying, Arlo, we've got a great idea. We want to start DAO. What's the best place to start?
Well, as you mentioned, many of our clients we're seeing and potential clients have already started a DAO and without thinking about legal entity. And that's the reality that we can help them deal with. But if someone comes to me, as you said, and they're like, we're thinking about a DAO, we have this idea, we have this focus, we have this community we feel like we can access. Should we just start it or start a legal entity? I would tell them if you have a choice, it's not really that smart to start a DAO without some type of protection. As you mentioned, under common law and in the U.S. and other common law countries, as well as a lot of civil jurisdictions, anytime you bring people together for a purpose, it's going to be a general partnership or maybe a civil partnership or some type of unincorporated association. And in those type of structures, they're not registered with the government. So people think you have to register with the government to be liable or connected. Actually, it's just any people joining together, as you know. And in that situation, there's unlimited liability for the members, maybe the developers, the corporation that's putting the money in to develop it. And you wouldn't want to willingly put yourself into unlimited liability situation with other people that may be anonymous to you or you don't really know. And so, what we usually recommend, what I recommend is, I say we need to do some jurisdiction shopping. We need to see what kind of what kind of legal entities that we could establish that will wrap around the DAO. And one phrase I've heard that I think is really good is you kind of need jurisdictional arbitrage, which means kind of siloing off different parts of the DAO, depending on the nature of the DAO. If there's a treasury or if there's a protocols, that governance section, and you can go shopping. And you can go shopping in, for example, like offshore in the Marshall Islands. February of this year, just last month, they signed the Nonprofit Corporation Act, which includes a DAO framework. Malta has established a legal framework for DAOs. I've heard that in Switzerland, associations in Switzerland are really good if you're running just a protocol, but not really involved with financial products. Estonia, you can, in less than a week, you can launch a token issuing entity, get an opinion, and engage with regulators within just less than a week's time. If you're facing Asia, you can tap into some of those Asia-facing jurisdictions, such as Singapore, maybe Hong Kong. There's just lots of options out there. And then once you have this entity established, or maybe multiple entities, you can morph that into a DAO. You can come up with a DAO, as I said before. It's sort of like a governance. It's like a brain that controls all the entities. It allows you to handle the governance of that group in a very, as we said, a very collaborative approach, which is kind of one of the novel features of a DAO.
And I think when we're working with clients that are asking the question, maybe they're not a DAO. Like I had a conversation just last week with a really well-established company, no debt, great revenues, good business model, proven business model. And they, they were looking to do an acquisition. And they said, well, the traditional capital markets are not appealing to us. We're not getting good deals, good terms from VC firms. We thought maybe we would DAOify this in some way. And so we talked about how, the implications for using a traditional entity and DAOifying that entity and going around and shopping that on, within the crypto market, right? And going to see who's interested in backing a company that has a proven business model and is now going into a new jurisdiction with their proven business model. And for me, when I'm thinking about, do I want to join a DAO where if you're looking at Discord, it looks like pure insanity versus going with a traditional company that has one or two or three owners, that has a proven track record, that knows what they're doing, and they want to bring in a wider net of people who want to be involved and share in the upside. And certainly to me, as coming in from my standpoint, I'm going to go with that option versus an unproven DAO with unproven leadership, with may not have a good governance model set up and may not have good protocol set up.
Right. And one of the things too, that if you do go with an entity and an entity that's in some jurisdiction already been established, is you can take advantage of some default rules. Maybe your contracts or some of your organizational documents don't deal with every event that's going to come up. And as we know, some of the things like smart contracts are supposed to be immutable, and at least currently. And so when you have these default rules to fall back on, that really is helpful, can be helpful in sorting out future issues.
I think it's good to note that these jurisdictions are all grappling with it, right? I mean, I think it's interesting that Estonia is one of the front runners. I've heard good things about Singapore, good things about BVI. There are a lot of these offshore jurisdictions that are trying to revamp their code, their tax code, their corporations code as quickly as possible to take advantage of this opportunity, because everyone is talking about it, everyone knows. And so it will continue to be our job to monitor those jurisdictions and see which ones are most attractive. And of course, when the U.S. for our U.S. clients, when those default U.S. rules apply, right? I was talking to a group of members the other day, some DAO members, about when U.S. jurisdiction will apply, regardless of what type of entity you've set up, right? And so if you have, for instance, a U.S. company, or you have a foreign company with more than 50% of the operations in the U.S. or of the shareholders in the U.S., the owners or the participants in the U.S., you could be by default a U.S. company, and some don't want to deal with that, and so we have to deal with more creative ways to do an end run around that a bit, and at least give a passable explanation as to why this international DAO, this international group, should not be beholden to U.S. jurisdiction. So it's complicated, but it's doable. That's what I keep telling people. I said it's doable. It's complicated, and certainly it's changing. Do you have any parting thoughts on this idea on whether we go DAO to traditional company or traditional company to DAO, Arlo, before we head off?
No, I mean, other than just if you haven't started a DAO yet, talk to somebody about possibly finding an appropriate entity, whether it's in your country that you're a resident or offshore, and sort it out. Because as I said, the big part is the liability. Just getting that sorted out, so you're not signing up to something that's going to backfire for you later.
Awesome. Thanks, Arlo. We'll chat soon. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan.